Dear students, dear colleagues, dear guests and friends, it's my immense honor to welcome today at the Institute of Chemistry Professor Dan Šehtman from the Technion, which is the Israeli Institute of Technology, and he's the Nobel Prize laureate in chemistry in 2011. Still closer? I don't like this. As you all know, he is the first Nobel Prize winner from the natural sciences to have a lecture in Macedonia, and it's at the Institute of Chemistry. Allow me not to go into details of Professor's achievements and biography and what he does, because we send you so many links to read, and I hope you did your homework. You know more than I can say now. But for the sake of our guest here, I would like to tell him who is in the audience today. In the first row here, first two rows, we have students, high school students, who have won competitions in chemistry and physics, and some of them have participated in Olympics, and some of them have won medals. So this is a way we can stimulate them to, with the proximity with the Nobel Prize winner, to pursue their studies in natural sciences. Also here, we have students majoring in chemistry, physics, and chemical engineering, so they have made the decisions to study natural sciences. And also we have here those pursuing their master's and PhD studies. So this lecture, which is different from what they're used to, maybe will open their eyes what their path in the future might be. Also, we have the faculties of the Institute of Chemistry, the Institute of Physics, the Faculty of Chemical Engineering, and people who have retired, but the active ones are the ones who are the decision makers, who can make changes in the curricula according to what we're going to hear today. So maybe that's going to be of use for everybody here. Further, I see in the audience some of our former students who have their companies, who work in these fields, some are in the pharmaceutical industry and some are in other chemical industries. I hope this will be of help for all of them. In the audience, we also have some guests here. I'm not going to go into because I know who everybody is here. I can see, but they're welcome also. I was looking for the CEO of Alkaloid, for example. I don't see him here. I see the research, head of the research in Alkaloid, who has been very helpful in making this lecture possible with their support. So I'm not going to go any further. So Professor Shechtman, thank you again for coming to Macedonia, and the podium is all yours now.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Okay, I hope that somebody will connect the computer to the screen, and then we can start. It's above me. Ah, wonderful. Okay, let me tell you a few words about myself. I will introduce myself, and then we can start the lecture. I was not interested in science when I was young. I was interested to become a mechanical engineer. This is because of a book that I read by Jules Verne. The book name is Mystery Island. Maybe some of you read it. And the hero in that book was an engineer. And I wanted to be like him because he knew how to make things. He knew how to make everything, and I wanted to be like him, to know how to make everything. So this is why I went to study mechanical engineering at the Technion, which is later on became my university. And 4 years later, I became a very proud mechanical engineer. The year was 1966, and I could not find a job. There was a big recession in my country at the time, all over the world, in fact, and I could not find a job. Is it good when you don't find a job or not good? Well, depends what you do with it. So I decided to continue for my master's degree in material science, and I said in 2 years after my master's degree I will find a job. And I did find a job, wonderful job, after 2 years. But during these 2 years of doing my master's research, I fell in love with science and decided to become a scientist and continue for my PhD, and that sealed my fate. So, but my lecture today is not related to science. It is related to technological entrepreneurship and the future of Macedonia. Why am I talking about technological entrepreneurship? Because I've done something about it. When I was a student at the Technion, your age, the spirit of my university told me in many words, you'll be so good that when you graduate, everybody will want to hire you. And I said, this is wonderful. But what if I want to open my own technology business? Why don't you teach me how to do that? Technion said, I talked to a professor, teach me how to open my own technology business. The word startup did not exist those days. They told me, no, we teach principles. We don't teach how-to courses. Okay. 1987, I became a full professor. And then I said, now I can do whatever I want. What did I want? I want to listen to lectures on technological entrepreneurship. So I opened the class of technological entrepreneurship, which I didn't teach. I invited special lecturers, and I was student number one. I was sitting there in the corner, in the first row, listening to lectures. It was for me, but I had 600 students with me. It was the largest Technion class. I had 600 students in my class every week. You can imagine, I don't know how many people are here, I can calculate, but 600 students is much more than this. And it became a very, very powerful class, and the class continues today. I ran it for 30 years, and now a colleague of mine continues. And this is why I can talk freely about technological entrepreneurship after listening to lectures for 30 years. Hey. Okay. So, and why is it linked to the future of Macedonia? So let us start. We'll start with demography. This is the called demographic pyramid. Up there you see age groups. To the side, women and men. Red is women and blue is men. And you can see that in Israel we have many young people, and as the age group goes up, we have less and less and less and less until you reach 100. Only a few women are left and the men are not there anymore. And it is called a demographic pyramid because it looks like a pyramid. Okay, so this is Israel, and this is from the year 2014. It did not change. The number of children per woman in Israel is 3.1. In my family, it's 3.2. This is the demographic pyramid of Macedonia. It does not look like a pyramid, it looks like a mushroom. If you look at the lower part, you see that you don't have many children in Macedonia, and most of the people are within the working age, which is the fat side of this diagram. And this is because, by the way, the number of children per woman in Macedonia is 1.3. We are 3.1, you are 1.3. Whoops. And this is the comparison. Okay, now what does it mean? It means that in Macedonia, every young person like you will have to produce much more GDP per capita to support the parents and the grandparents, each one of you. And this means education, and this is the subject of my talk today. When you have one child per woman, you have 1.3. When you have one, I couldn't find a family with 1.3 children. When you have one child per woman, this is how the family looks like. And this little kid will have to support his parents and grandparents. Now they are happy, but let's see what happens in a few years when he grows up and they become very old. This is one child per woman. When you have 3.2 children per woman, this is how the family looks like. This is my family, by the way. Okay, so we have 12 grandchildren to support the aging parents and grandparents. If a family has only one child per woman, that child will have to produce more GDP per capita to support the aging generation. What can we do about it? What can a country do about it? First of all, a country has to realize that it's an issue to be resolved. Your leaders, your government has to realize that there is a problem there and it has to be resolved. So you can do several things. Number one, you can encourage larger families. How can a government encourage larger families? Well, for instance, governments can encourage women to have children and develop career by creating daycare centers for small children so that the mother can leave safely the child in the daycare center and go develop her career. I'm sure all the young ladies here want to have 3 children, each one of you, and you want to develop career. So if the government, not every woman is happy about what I said. So my wife, Professor Shechtman, has 4 children, and she developed her career. She's a professor in the university. She's the one with the blue here, smiling at me. Wave with her. Yeah, okay. In order to raise 4 children, she needed a helping husband, and that's me. Okay, there's no joke. 2 have to take part in it. So, encouraging larger family, and governments can do a lot about it. There are many countries that do something about it. In China, they now encourage 2 children per family, and very aggressively. In Russia, they give very high rewards for women that have more than 1 child. Every country can do about it once they realize it's an issue. And number 2, encourage technological entrepreneurship, and this is the subject of my talk today. So let's have a quick look at the world today. Number 1, we have struggling economies. In many countries, we have struggling economies. We have local, tribal, and international wars. International was not on my previous presentation on this subject, but now we have international war also. And what happens? Waves of refugees, people with nothing, flee away from the wars, move to other countries, and start their lives again. This is difficult to do. So now let's go to the subject. So what is technological entrepreneurship? It's a very simple definition. Maybe I can use this one here. Yeah. Oh. It says the establishment of a new technology venture. Very simple. But you have to establish it. Has to be new, and it's a venture. Some win, some lose. It doesn't come easy. You have to be ready for it. And the more you learn about it, the more ready you will be to open a new startup. Why is technological entrepreneurship important for the well-being of societies, countries, and the world? because it is the best way to produce high income, thriving economy, and many new good jobs for the educated. People who are not educated will find it difficult to find good jobs. They will find jobs. They will clean streets and they will serve in hotels. But good jobs are for the educated. So you are very smart. You will be very educated. And all of you will have very good jobs. And hopefully, more and more people in Macedonia will have higher education and not only have good jobs, but also develop their own careers and some of them will become entrepreneurs. Building a sustainable economy requires development of human ingenuity. The most important natural resource of any country is not the minerals in the ground, is not the gold on the mountains. It is human ingenuity. Problem is you have to develop it. And you can do it, and you do it. But you have to realize that this is the most important natural resource, human ingenuity. And this is why my talk may be important to do that. So how can we do that? Well, first of all, we have to have good basic education to all. To all. Not only the people in the capital, the people in the villages. They should not go with the cows to the field. They should go to school. Good basic education to all. What is basic? Later on I'll show you what I think is basic education to all and what age should we start teaching science. Number two, good engineering and science education. Many of you are like that. Every country needs more engineers and scientists. The more, the better. So, we need government policy and support. Government has to realize that we need more engineers and scientists, and they have to support not only education, but also when people open startups, the government should help them succeed. I can give you an example from my country, Israel. We have a position in the government called the chief scientist. In fact, every ministry has a chief scientist. But there is one person who is called the chief scientist. He has a budget to distribute to startups. His budget is $500 million per year. He gives away $500 million a year to new startups to help them build up. But not only startups. If an existing company wants to develop a new product, that chief scientist will also, if it is worthy of support, that chief scientist will also support a new product in an existing company. By the way, the chief scientist of today in Israel did his master's degree with me. So I know him very well, and we correspond, and I get the numbers from him all the time. So government policy and support. And free market economy. Sounds obvious, right? We need to produce, sell, buy around the world. Well, not in every country it sounds reasonable. I gave a talk in South America in the parliament of one country. I spoke to the parliament. They were very happy with my talk, and then I said free market economy, and everybody said no. Free market economy is neo-colonialism. America will come and take everything. I said to the parliament, okay, you want to protect your products, you will die financially. You have to compete in the world, develop better and better products, and this comes only through competition, not through protection. They did not accept what I said, and they're not doing very well. I hope you do. And no corruption. Corruption kills entrepreneurship. Directly kills entrepreneurship. Let me give you an example. Something that will apply to you. Hopefully not in the future. In one of the countries, never mind what country, which is very high on the scale of corruption, A young lady, I asked the young lady, he said, corruption, corruption. I said, how does it affect you? Yes, there is corruption up there, but how does it affect you? She says, very simple. I wanted to open a company. So there is a form that I have to fill. I fill the form, and I go to the office where they accept these forms, and I come to the office, and there is a person there, and there is a pile of requests, and he puts mine underneath. And I said, how long will it take to be approved? He said, well, probably 3 years. He said, no, I want to open the company now. Ah, you want to open the company now. You wanted me to put it on the top of the pile? Okay, that costs money. This is corruption that affects people like you. All right? She didn't have the money. She doesn't have the company. Okay, no corruption. Let's look at Macedonia on the corruption scale. The Corruption Perception Index, CPI, ranks countries around the world based on how corrupt their public sectors and perceived to be. Public sector, I'm talking about government of all levels, not only central government, city government, and so on and so forth. The results are given on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is highly corrupt and 100 is very clean. CPI paints a grim picture of the state of corruption worldwide. And let me show you a partial list. This is a partial list. Best in the world is Denmark, number 1 on the scale. This is number 1. Number 2 is Finland. And I didn't give number 3 and 4, but they're all in Scandinavia and New Zealand. Far away, but least corrupt. Israel, bad news, 36. We have problems. Macedonia, 87. Not good at all. Russia, 137. North Korea, 171. This has to be corrected. It's up to you people to vote for a government that they will promise fight against corruption. I'm sure that every government promises that. Vote for one that actually does that. Okay, so this is what you can do about corruption in high level. But this may not be enough. You see, there are countries that have all this: good basic education to all, good engineering and science education, good government policy, free market economy, no corruption. Does it mean that there are also entrepreneurial countries? Not so. Because also needed is development of entrepreneurial spirit and knowledge. And this is really the subject of my talk. How to develop entrepreneurial spirit and knowledge. Born to be a technological entrepreneur? Well, some people say that in order to become a successful entrepreneur, you have to be born with it. What does it mean? It means that if your father and mother have a good startup or a factory, or they are producers of some important things, and they are very rich, and every evening at the dinner table you talk about money, and you talk about developing your product, sales, and you talk about, then you're born entrepreneur. But most of your parents are not like this, and my parents are not like this either. So most people are, not born entrepreneurs. So, not so. Can we teach technological entrepreneurship? Yes, we can, and we should. And this is the good news. And the question is, who teaches entrepreneurship today? Well, universities around the world. You can go to universities around the world and ask, do you teach entrepreneurship? They say, whoa, we are the best of the best. Especially the Ivy League in the United States and so on and so forth. But how do they teach? They teach startup management in MBA programs. They teach how to manage startups. But the graduates, problem is MBA startup managers do not usually open new high-tech startups. They learn how to manage it, but they don't open it because they are not technologists. So, who opens startups? Well, it is engineers, biologists, medical doctors, scientists and computer experts, they start new high-tech companies. These are the people. So these are the people that open. We should teach them how to do it while they are students, as early as possible. So whom and where should we teach how to open startups? Start in high school. Encourage people, young people in high school, to think about their future as entrepreneurs. Stick it in their heads. Teach in high school how to do it. And in Israel, we have some programs to do that. Not government, but volunteering groups that teach high school how to open startups. And of course, engineers, scientists, medical doctors, these are the people that have a chance to open a startup in universities. So this is you, teach technological entrepreneurship in university, and technicians. Not forget the technicians in vocational schools. These are the people that can push the buttons on a numerical control machine to produce something. They can also open a startup, and they can be very successful. So teach in vocational schools. Now the story about my class is technological entrepreneurship at the Technion class. I tell you some details about this class, because if you want to open such a class, it will give you a good start, and your university can always contact me for more details. And I encourage the students to ask your management to open a class like this, because many of you may want to become entrepreneurs, and it will be wonderful for Macedonia and for yourself. In 1987, I became a full professor that year. And then I said, well, now I can do whatever I want. As I mentioned before, I would like to listen to lectures. And I started and conducted the technological entrepreneurship class at the Technion. And I ran it for 30 years, as I already told you, and it continues now. So how does the class work? I tell you some details. Usually I don't do that, but in university I tell you how to do it, how I do it. You can copy, you can improve. It's open to all Technion students. Anybody who wants to take the class can take the class, if there is room in the hall. So I could take only 600 people. And nowadays it's not 600, it's more like 300. We moved to a smaller hall. And all lectures are given by invited speakers. So who are they? Number one, they are successful entrepreneurs. These are people that started from zero, really barely had money for food, but they had a good idea, and they started, and they did it right. And now they are billionaires, all of them. They have very large companies, and in fact, not only companies, have an umbrella of many, many subsidiaries. So they are the fathers of entrepreneurship in Israel. They come and give a talk in my class, how they started, how did they find the first money, how did they find the first partners, how did they find the first customer to sell their goods. They have fantastic stories. It sounds so real, and it sounds so like first stage, and now they are so big. And in Israel, I can call anybody, any industrialist, anybody in the country, and say, I want you to talk in my class. And they will say, yes, sir, when do you want me? Everybody. Nobody ever said no, but I can tell you that the first people that I invited were really the fathers of entrepreneurship, and they are big industrialists. So when I called somebody along the way and I said, come talk in my class, they said, well, what is this class? Who talked? Anybody I know talked in your class? I said, yeah. Several times talk with Yagalil, oh, I'm coming. Nobody ever refused. Some of them offered money to my class. They wanted to donate to the Technion money for my class. I said, I don't need any money. It's a Technion class, I don't want any money. And then after these people, I bring new startup entrepreneurs. These are people that opened a company 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and they are still struggling to succeed. And many of them were my students. And now they are entrepreneurs, and they tell the students about difficulties they have, how they solve the difficulties. And each one has different problems. Yes, for one, it's difficult to get good people to work in his company. Another one has a money problem. Another one has a product and they find it difficult to start selling, and so on and so forth, and how they overcome the problem. Very realistic. And these are young people, so the students can relate to them, not as the father of entrepreneurship, but people like them in a couple of years. And I bring professionals. So who are the professionals? Number one, I bring the patent officer of the country who talks about IP. IP is intellectual property. How can you protect your intellectual properties? Should you protect your intellectual properties? How does it work? And he explained to them in very simple words what this protection of intellectual property gives you. I bring somebody who talks about market survey. Why you should have a market survey before you open your company. You should know what's going on in the field. You should know the competition. You should know the price range. You should know the direction of development of the product. If you don't know what's going on, you cannot open a company. You should be aware of what happens in your future world. This is market survey. And I bring somebody who talks about marketing. So now you have a product. When do you start selling? When the product is perfect? Well, yes, if you are Intel or Mercedes, then you wait until your product is perfect, and then you start selling, but you're not one of them. You need cash flow. You start selling now. If it needs fix later. Sell now, fix later. Is it moral? I don't know. Is it practical? Very practical. You need cash flow. Start selling. If people complain, fix it. Very practical advices like this. Okay. During the lecture, each student summarizes the lecture on a form. Each student writes in his own handwriting on a form, paper. You summarize the lecture. As you leave the class, put it on my desk. Whoops, pile. And then this is how I can find who was in my class. And I had an assistant that takes care of all the administration. And at the Technion, you don't have to come to lectures. You have to come to exercises, and you have to come to the laboratory, and you have to come to the final exams. But you don't have to come to class. It's not mandatory. But in my class, it is mandatory, and there is no final exam. All I want is exposure. I want my students to be exposed to the spirit of entrepreneurship. No exam. But I want them to be there, and they are there. The reports are collected at the end of the lecture, and attendance mandatory. Final exam, no final exam. Okay, what an entrepreneur who is invited to talk in my class, what can they talk about? They can say how they started, and you hear fascinating story about how they started. It gives good ideas to the young people. Difficulties they faced and ways they overcame them. How did they do it? What were their financial resources? How did they find the proper partners? How did they find customers? How did they find the first customer? You have a product. How do you find the first customer? And what is the company culture? Company culture, don't knock it down. Very important. These are rules that you decided to obey to in your company. And many of them are moral rules. Let me give you an example. One of the large companies in Israel produced chips for printers, computer printers. All the printers in the world have this chip, at least had this chip. I don't know what's happening now. But they sold to all the producers of the printers that you have near your computer. And they developed them, and then one day they discovered that the chip has a bug. The bug will not cause problems unless you do very complicated something. And people will probably never discover that there is a bug, but they discovered that there is a bug. So now the question is, what do you do? Well, if you tell your customer, these are huge companies, that you have a bug, there is an issue there. Some of them may say, we don't buy from you anymore, we cannot trust you anymore, you have a bug in your chip, we'll look for another chip provider. Or they can say, well, we understand how difficult it was for you to admit that you have a bug. correct it, make sure it doesn't happen again. We continue to work with you. We appreciate that you told us. And this is all what the companies did. All the companies connected them and said, thank you very much for telling us. We understand that this is not a real issue. And we know how difficult it was for you to tell us that there was a bug in the chip and you fixed it. We really appreciate it. This is company culture. They told the customer that there was a bug there because the company culture is based on truth and it's based on openness. And so, company culture, very important. Set of rules that you must obey. And most of them deal with honesty. Okay. Motivation. The motivation to open a startup should be the startup itself, not money. Money is a byproduct of a successful business. Concentrate on the success of your business. If you're successful, money will come. Don't worry about it. Not money. Okay, mistakes that lead to failure of startups. The speakers in my class tell about mistakes, and they have many mistakes that they talk about. I brought just a few. Non-professional management by the technological entrepreneur. This is an issue. Somebody opens a company, he hires 2 people, so now they are a team of 3, and he is the manager. But the company grows and grows and grows, and now you are 100 people. Are you fit to manage a company of 100 people? You're an entrepreneur. You're fantastic with technology, but you're not a manager. Hire somebody who knows how to manage a startup company. For instance, one of those people from the MBA programs that study how to manage a startup company. Hire one of them. Give up. Hire a CEO. You will be the head of the director. I mean, you'll be whatever you want, but let somebody actually manage your company. Give up. Give up. 3 people? Yes. 100 people? No. Give somebody else the job. Very practical thing. And people, because they grow slowly, it's not from 3 to 100, it's 3 to 10 and 10 to 20. They think that they can manage. No. Hire somebody who is a professional. Insufficient market service and a lack of market knowledge. You didn't do the market survey. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the direction of development. You don't know the price range. Big mistake. You'll fail. Wrong money sources. Really? Wrong money sources? What do you care? $1 million is $1 million, no? No. Depends where you take the money from. And I have a list of priorities where a young or not so young entrepreneur take the money, and I will talk about it. I will elaborate on that later on. Partnering with friends rather than professionals. This is very Israeli type behavior. 3 people ended their military service, they go to the beach, look at the girls, and then somebody says, wow, I have an idea, and the other one jumps and says, wow, wonderful, let's do things together. And they do things together. But are they the best team? Not necessarily. You have an idea, okay, you're a technologist. You need somebody who understands in marketing, and this is not one of your friends. And you need somebody who understands in finances, and this is not one of your friends. So don't jump, and partnerships like this don't succeed very well. Make sure that you hire, that you join the right combination of partners to run the company. And ego-driven entrepreneurship. I know best. Don't tell me how to do it. I invented it. I know best. No. Be humble. Listen. It's your decision, but listen to good advices. Okay? Be humble. And bad contract among founders. Now, our advice is the following. When you open a company alone, no problem. But when you have partners, go to the best lawyer in town and sign the best contract you can get. Why? Because one day you may start to separate, to depart. One partner said, I'm not interested anymore. I want to take my share and go away. So what are the rules? Well, the rules are in the contract. What happens when you decide to break out. Everything should be in the contract, so there are no questions asked, because if partners start to fight, that's the end of the company. So for the sake of the company, write a very good contract when you start. Cultural consideration. In many countries, there is fear of failure, especially in the Far East. But also in Europe, you find it everywhere. There is a good chance that a startup will fail. So people say, you know, failure is a shame. And this is mainly in the Far East, Japan, China, South Korea, these countries. Failure is a shame. Shame on you, shame on your family, God forbid, shame on the emperor. I will not touch. I don't touch because I don't touch entrepreneurship because there's a chance I'll fail. I will work for a large company, stable company, and everybody will be happy. So in those countries, there is not much entrepreneurship. Japan, South Korea, not much entrepreneurship. They are very large companies, they are amazing companies, but startups, very few. And if there are, the big companies swallow them right away. So, because people are afraid to fail, my slogan is, failure okay, start again. Failure is not a shame. You tried, you failed, many do, fail. Start again. Now you are an experienced entrepreneur and you have a better chance to succeed. This is scientifically true. In the second attempt, you have a better chance to succeed because you will not make the same mistakes again, so I hope. But my class says, my entrepreneurship class at the Technolошко says the following: don't learn from your own mistake. Learn from other people's mistakes, and then you'll have a better chance to succeed in the first trial. This is the purpose, the main purpose of my class at the Technolошко. Failure, okay, start again. Let me tell you something. In some countries, especially in the Far East, when I come to give talks about entrepreneurship, they ask, please, I want this red line to be the title of your talk. Failure, okay, start again. This is the most important thing to our students, to your listeners, and this is what we want to be the title of your talk. Government role. What can government's role to encourage entrepreneurship? This is not, this list does not depend on high priority, just a list. Incubators. Governments can open incubator. What is an incubator? It's a center with a few rooms or a few laboratories with a management office, and you can get not only government support for your startup, but also good advice and good management without hiring a manager. This center, the incubator management, will help you run well your company until you grow enough to get out, and now you're independent. And governments can do that. In my country, the government has many such incubators, but also there are private incubators. Private people invest and they take part of the company, and then people develop the products in the incubator. Number two, partnerships with VC fund. Now this is an example to the government. I'm talking about government now. The government of Israel said to the world the following: if you come and invest big money in startups in Israel, we are partners. We will invest, you invest 60%, we, the government, will invest 40%. Aha. People say, well, number one, and it will be the 100% will be yours, but we will invest 40% in it. So first of all, people say, wow, that sounds very good. Especially when the government invests, we can trust the government that this is a good place to invest. And so a lot of money started to come to Israel. Huge amount of money is invested from the world in startups in Israel. Many billions of dollars. Former chief scientist office in every ministry. We have that. I mentioned that before. And support industrial innovative R&D in startups. Again, the chief scientist gives money to support industrial innovative research and development in startups. And sign binational agreements and support binational funds. I'm sure Macedonia have binational agreements. I don't know about it, I'm sure you have. In Israel, we have many binational agreements to support joint ventures between startup people from different countries, so to develop new products. Why is it important for a small country? Because the big country has the market. We have the brain, we develop the product, but we don't have the market. You have the market, so we'll develop, we'll make a joint venture, and you will sell our product. Everybody is happy. Formally support instruction and advice centers for emerging startups. In Israel, every large cities have an office. If you have a new startup and you have questions, whatever question there is, go to this office. In that office, there are experienced people. Usually they volunteer. There are my age people who have a lot of experience. I don't have, but they have a lot of experience in startup management, and you can ask questions. Sometimes you pay a little bit, sometimes it's for free, but you get very good advice. So this is what governments can do. I want to mention a few words about venture capital funds. VC, venture capital funds. Is it good or bad? I don't like venture capital funds, and venture capitalists hate me for that. And I will explain you why I don't like it. What happens with the venture capital fund, let's say that you need €1 million to start your company. They will give you $1 million, and they take part of your company. Let's say that for $1 million, they take 40% of the company. Okay, so you start working, and you realize that after a year and a half, you need more money. Ah, they said, you need more money, we'll give you more money. But we need more from your company. At the end of the game, you are left with almost nothing, and the venture capital fund will have to pay back the money for the investors. People invested in them. They have to pay them back in 5 years. So after 5 years, sometimes 7 years. After 5 years, they will come to you and say, well, we'll have to sell your company because we have to pay back the investors, and your dream is dead now. So I don't like that, and I recommend other sources. How does it work? I just talked about it. So where should we go to seek funding for our startup? This is what we teach our students. Number one, angels. What are angels? Angels are people who made it big time, who succeeded. Maybe they made an exit for $500 million or a lot of money. And now it's in their pocket, and they want to reinvest it. And the best way for them to reinvest it is in good ideas that you have, which are in their field of knowledge, their field of expertise. So they become wonderful partners, because not only do they give you money, they will give you good advice. They can lose the money without crying too much, but they are really helping you to succeed with good advice, with opening markets for you, and so on and so forth. So angels are number one on my list. Strategic partners. Okay, you have a product, but you don't have a market. Make strategic partnership with a large company who has the world market. You will produce it, they will sell it, they will correct your product so that it will be better for them to sell, and you work together and everybody is happy. You make it, they sell it. And bootstrapping. Bootstrapping means opening a company without money. How can you open a company without money? Well, let's say that you need for your company to write a computer program, and you don't know how to do that. So tell somebody who knows how to write the computer programs, I want you to write for me a computer programs, but I don't have money to pay. But I have a company, and I'll give you part of my company. I'll give you 20% of my company. He or she will do it for you, and you can start making the products, and everybody is happy. So give part of your company. And remember, at this point, the value of your company is zero. Give a nice part of this zero to somebody who will make it a successful company. All right? Get good partners by giving them a nice part of your company, and everybody will be happy. VC funds are last on my list, and I explain you why. What money should not be used? Don't take money from, if you don't have deep pockets, that means if you're not rich, do not use your own money. Don't sell your car or apartment for a wonderful idea, because you may lose your car, your apartment, your wife, and your children. Don't do that. Don't use your own money if you don't have very deep pockets. Take money from people who can lose it without crying too much. And do not take money from relatives or friends. Don't do that. Don't. You take money from your aunt. 2 weeks later, hello, Sonny, how are we doing? Are we making money already? Well, you know, it's just 2 weeks. I need several years to start. Several years? Oh! No. Don't take from friends, from relatives or friends. Now, I want to tell you very briefly about 2 projects that I did in addition to the technological entrepreneurship. And this is also something they can do here. I asked myself, we need more engineers and scientists. How can I convince young people to like to become engineers and scientists? What can I do about it? My answer to myself was, start teaching science early. I spoke on the radio in Israel, and I said that, start teaching science early. And the mayor of Haifa, my town, listens to the radio in his car. As soon as the end of the interview, he calls me, hey, Danny, we are friends. You said early science education? I said, yep. He said, how early? I said, start teaching science in kindergartens. He said, will you do it in Haifa? I said, do you pay? He said, I will pay. And we started a program. The program is partially successful, but the most successful part of it is there is a special kindergarten, a whole building, 90 children aged 5 to 6, 30 groups, and that building has a laboratory. And when you enter the laboratory, you think, well, nice chemical laboratory in university, but no. You look down, and they are 10 young people aged 5 to 6, sitting, laboratory coats, performing experiments very seriously. And the teacher is a lady with masters in chemistry. She can teach high school, but she prefers to teach young children. This is wonderful, and it's example to the world. People from around the world come to see it, and I said, copy it. It will be great for your countries. So this is another program. This is a television program that is called To Be a Scientist with Professor Dan. I approached the Israel National Educational Television Channel, and I prepare a speech of 20 minutes to try to convince the manager to open with me a class of science for young children. And after 5 minutes of talk, he said, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. It's called To Be a Scientist with Professor Dan, and they brought 3 children. This is not kindergarten, this is 7 to 8 age children. And we talk science. We talk science, real science like you teach in high school. But you teach young children, and they understand it. And we talk, and they ask questions, they answer. It's wonderful. And so the people that really liked it were the grandmother who sat with the children in the evening looking at my program, and when they meet me in the street, I don't know, this lady approached him, oh, we love you, we love you. Who are you? Oh, we watch your program on television. So it was, it had a high impact. This is on the internet, by the way. You can see it on the internet, but it's in Hebrew. One day I will make translations, subtitles. One day I promise I'll do that. And this is the kindergarten. So this is the lady, the teacher. These are the children. You see in the background, it looks like it's a laboratory. Looks like a laboratory, and they perform very seriously a scientific experiment. Okay, and after the class, they take off the laboratory coats. They sit like this, as you can see it, and the teacher makes sure that they understood what was going on in the class. She asks questions about the lesson, and they answer it, and they discuss it. It takes long 15 minutes to discuss what we did in half an hour in the experiments to make sure that everybody really understood what was going on. Good system. And we developed a new generation, not only of scientists, but also young people that think critically, that learn how to ask questions. Why are you telling me this? I want to understand. So that people will not stick nonsense into their heads later on when they grow up. They learn to think logically, and they have to think in a critical way. This is the book, Startup Nation, about Israel. At the time, we were less than 8 million. Now we are close to 10 million people. Israel grows very fast because of tourism. Two reasons. Number one, 3.1 children per woman, birth rate, and many people come to Israel. The more successful you are, more people come from abroad to share the wealth, and they come to work in the country. More than that, every large company in the world that you know about, Google, Microsoft, Intel, Mercedes, HP, every large company in the world has an R&D center in Israel. 300 companies and more now have R&D, research and development center in Israel. What do they come to use? The human ingenuity. Is it good or bad? Well, this is a brain drain. People don't go away. They stay in Israel. But they work for a company who is in the United States or Germany or France. And these companies do not produce in Israel. They produce in Vietnam, in Sri Lanka, in China. So this is a brain drain. However, it has a good side also. Because these people who develop products for 5 years from now know what's going to happen in their field in 5 years from now. And when they leave, they can develop product that will be support for the products of the big companies in 5 years from now. This is one good thing. The other thing is that in Israel, people are very friendly and communicative. They talk a lot to each other. And so the information is spread. And many people come with new ideas. So this is, on the whole, number one, we cannot prevent it. It's a democracy. Any company can open a subsidiary in Israel for R&D. And the good side is that it is part of the fact that Israel is a startup nation. This is an important game. Also, another thing is military service, mandatory in Israel. Most of people in the military are not in the battlefield. They are near the computers. They develop programs for security. But safety and security, of course, it's an issue in the military, but also in our lives, okay? You want your cell phone to be protected from penetration from evil sources. So these people can also, once they finish their military service, they do the same thing for civilian purposes, and that's another source of growth for startup companies. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure talking to you. I wish well to Macedonia and to all of you. I hope that many of you will be engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs in every field that you want to succeed in. And I want to tell you just one thing. If you want to succeed in science or technology, choose a subject that you like, whatever you want. Choose something that you like now, but become experts in it. Try to become number one in your class, in whatever you want. You want to become expert in thermodynamics of liquids? Okay, great. Try to become number one. You want to play the saxophone? Nice. Try to become number one. Whatever you like, choose now and become expert. And today, in today's world, it is easy to become expert because information is available all over us. And AI will help even better. Artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and so on, will help you do that. Good luck to you all. Thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank you.
Again? Okay, thank you, Professor Shechtman. Any questions?
Thank you, Professor. I'm Alexander Tsvetkovsky, professor at Physical Chemistry and Pharmaceutical Technology at the second largest university in Macedonia, Delchev. Thank you for inspiring speech. I would like to ask you, what is the rate of intellectual property rights issuing both at the universities and the companies in Israel? Why I'm asking this as a metrics, because how much the managing of the technology toward the spurring entrepreneurship spirits and the venture capital is fascinating. Another one crucial issue is how to nurture the develop the culture and the circumstances for patent intellectual property right assets, that means knowledge, toward the patent protection, both at scientific research and from applied research.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the first one, but the other one...
I'm asking about the rate of
let me ask you the
protection.
second one, then
Thank you.
The protection of intellectual properties, right? Well, Israel is a modern Western country, and intellectual properties are kept very well. There is no corruption that I know on this scale. We are not allowed to copy others, and we make sure that others don't copy us. It's not 100% sealed proof sealed, but we try to do the best. This system with IP protection works fairly well in Israel. It's not an issue that we talk about. It's done well, as far as I know. I didn't read anything in a newspaper about it for the last 10 years, so it must work well. The first question was?
What is the rate, the number of patents that are issued?
Oh. Okay. Usually, startup companies register their patents in the United States. So it is protected there, and that works very well. Also, they register in Israel, and it also works very well. What is the rate? Every patent, every good idea is patented. We are not Coca-Cola that doesn't have a patent. They keep secret their ingredients. So yeah, this works well. I didn't hear any complaint about it. Other questions?
Igor Kuzmanovsky, Institute of Chemistry.
I don't see who is asking.
I'm here.
Please raise your hand
Yeah.
and see who is asking.
Here.
Aha, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to ask you about your opinion about emergence of artificial intelligence in last 10, 20, 12 years. Thank you.
Right. I ask you to
Artificial intelligence.
what is my opinion about artificial intelligence?
Your opinion, your thoughts.
Is this the question?
Your opinion, your thoughts about emergence of artificial intelligence in our everyday life in last 10, 12 years.
Okay. AI is here to stay. We can do nothing about it. This is fact number one. Number two, it has to be controlled. Can it be controlled? No. So we will be using it. We will be exposed to it. There will be frauds. Students will prepare things that are taken by ChatGPT, and it will be your job to find who did that and kick him or her in the rear side. So it is, you know, this question comes up time and again. When the first cars were starting to stroll the streets, people say, this is horrible. They will kill people because they ride so fast. Woo, 30 kilometers per hour. This is okay. Well, cars are here. We learn to use them. And yes, some people are killed by car, mostly because they are not very careful. So AI is here to stay. It will be developed very fast. It will be used by everybody, and it will be used for everybody, because the large companies will also use it, and we will learn to live with it. I cannot imagine the length and the breadth, how wide it will be in the future, and it's developing very, very fast. So if you want to know the details, talk to the people here who are experts in the field. I'm not one of them, but I'm sure that you have experts in computer science here that you can discuss it with them. Anyway, to sum it up, it's here to stay. We have to learn how to live with it and to enjoy it. And last thing, can it be controlled? No. Will not be controlled. It cannot be controlled. There will be frauds. Okay. We will learn how to protect ourselves from them. Like from cars, you know, you make sure that you... Oh. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Oh. Okay, let's again. First of all, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation to give a talk at the Faculty of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. Secondly, I would like to thank you for this exciting and, what is more important, very motivating talk for young people. And I believe that these students will have a chance to watch the talk again, because it will be recorded and also posted on YouTube. The question for you, which might help our students and these young people, is related to, do you have any information? What is the percentage of the startups which usually succeed? What's the rate of, to know what they can expect if they decide to start their own startup?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And in fact, in the past, I had, not only did I have the numbers, but I had the numbers per year, how many succeeded and how many failed. In Israel, most succeed, but most maybe 60% or something like that. Let's say that 2/3 succeed and 1/3 fail. But you don't know whether it's the first attempt or the second attempt or what is the attempt. So some people will tell you that only 20% succeed. Worldwide, people say, oh no, only 20% succeed. It is very, very vague. A company that doesn't fail, does it mean that it succeeds? No. It means that it's alive, but it's not necessarily successful. And many companies are like that. They're alive, but they don't take off. So it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area about success. The ones that really, really succeed fantastically are a small number. So most of them are alive, but only a small number really take off and do great job. That's about the right answer. Yes, other questions?
Well, I got a question. It's maybe a bit of a follow-up to his question, and that would be, do you know if the percentage of successful startups are rising due to some kind of factors, or are they maybe decreasing over time?
Do the number...
Are they rising or are they falling down?
Oh, the number?
The percentage of successful startups
The percentage of companies that are formed, how many companies are
are
formed every year?
successful. They
Every year?
yeah, not every year, but generally.
The worldwide, galaxy-wide, or what?
What percentage of is the percentage of successful companies rising over time?
Okay. Well, the fact is that the number of successful companies rise all the time, and this is because, in my country at least, there are many more startups that start business, and many more people are experienced in it. I mentioned it in my talk, there is a spirit of entrepreneurship in the country. When many young people sit down and chat as friends, and they are very interested in starting something new. And I can tell you that my class encouraged many people to open startups. I mentioned it in my talk. 25% of the graduates of my class were involved in startups. That doesn't mean that they opened it, but they were partners in startups or so. So, yeah, it is. Okay, you know what unicorn is in this business? Unicorn is a company that is privately owned, not public. They don't have shares. Privately owned, and they're worth more than $1 billion. So a person has a company that's worth more than $1 billion. That's a unicorn. And in Israel, we have very many of them. And they're not on the market. You cannot buy shares. It belongs to somebody. It's his own, or her own, or a group of three, or their own. So this is a unicorn, and there's a growing number in Israel of these. Huge number, in fact. When I read the numbers, I can't believe it, but that's a fact. Okay, other questions?
Hello, my name is Vladimir. I'm coming from traditional sector. I'm forest engineer. So my question will be looking in your presentation. It was wonderful, and I have possibility to see how the system theory is functioning through this technological entrepreneurship. Looking that the system theory is consisting of actors in the institution, and the institutions are the rules of the game which shape the actors. So my question will be looking from the perspective of technological entrepreneurship, how long, because if we need to implement the same here in Macedonia, we need the system change. And how long this system was lasting just to create the rules that will fit enough to be successful and to be implemented, because there is not only the policy, the government, the rules, but also you mentioned the science, education, professors, and etc. It's never-ending process.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the people. It depends on the country.
And also from the sector, is it traditional or?
In my country, I don't know about your country. I think your country is pretty much like my country. People talk to each other, and I don't know about fear of failure. In my country, there is no fear of failure. People don't talk about failure. So it has to do with the nature of the people. And when people are very motivated to succeed, and they are communicative, they talk to each other, and there is government help, and there is enough manpower or woman power to work in the company. If you have all this, then there's a very good chance that many startups will form and will succeed. And this is the case in Israel. This is why I talk about it, because I want you to copy it. I'd like you to teach entrepreneurship. Let me give you an example that I didn't mention before. I am linked to a university in Siberia. It's called Tomsk Polytechnic University. I'm not with them now because they have a war and I'm disconnected from them. But I was there for many years, and I advised them to open a class of entrepreneurship. They did a better job. They opened a program of entrepreneurship, not just one class like I do, There is a psychologist that talks about the psychology of entrepreneurship. There is a finance person who gives a whole class of finances of entrepreneurship. They open a whole program which is mandatory for every student to take. How effective it is? I'm not sure, because they do not have the spirit that we have in our country. But they opened a fantastic program, and universities can do that here. Okay, start with one class and then make it broader. The psychology of entrepreneurship is an important subject by itself. And changing the psychology towards entrepreneurship is something that the university can do. So it can be done, yeah.
Yeah, and the second one is, I was also impressed how you started in Israel.
If you hold your hand like this, I don't see you.
Yeah, I also was impressed how you started in Israel, that the entrepreneurs was coming there. So do you have information how much the ratio among these entrepreneurs that helps you in starting this course were opportunity driven, how much of them were necessity driven, push and pull in the business? Because
in my class?
Yeah, the entrepreneurs that has spoken on the classes, because here in the traditional sector, the people, most of the entrepreneurs were pushing the business or necessity driven. And also this is typical for the ex-socialist countries. So do you also have such kind of examples in your classes, or do you make, or all of them? I assume that maybe more of them are opportunity driven, looking new perspectives for starting the business.
If I understand you well, you ask me how it is divided between different professions.
No. Entrepreneurs that has visiting your classes in the beginning.
Who are they? From what departments?
No. Are there? What is the profile of the entrepreneurs? Necessity driven or opportunity driven? Are they recognize this business and start it, like search for opportunity, see the opportunity and start the business, or somehow the state or some rule push them to start this business?
Usually it's their own initiative. And I can answer the question you didn't ask, and maybe somebody will ask. Where do they come? What is their profession? And so usually it has to do with electrical engineering, computer engineering, medicine, medical sciences. These are the main ones, and also physicists and chemists, at lower level. But mostly computer scientists and electrical engineers. These are most of the people that open a startup, and of course in the familiar subject to them. So you didn't ask that, but general knowledge. Let's make it the last question, okay?
This is the last. Sorry.
You'll be second, and that will be it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Vladimir Mangovski, a chemist working at Alkaloid Skopje.
Maybe you can help me understand the question.
In Macedonia, we have a great problem. And this problem is that you see these young people, maybe they have had the best of the education and the best of luck to prosper and support from parents and everybody. And after university, they decide to leave this country. We have a huge brain drain in Macedonia.
They leave the country? They leave the country. Yeah. Okay, so what is the question?
So, what do you do about it?
What can you do about it?
Yes. Have you got any advice or any thoughts about this? Because it's not. It's a great challenge for us.
Okay, can I answer you now? Okay. By the way, in my culture, a question is 7 words with a question mark at the end. Anything else is a speech. But let me ask you a question. Okay, I'm sorry. No offense. You will have to create an atmosphere in which people from your country who left the country will want to come back. In order to do that, you will have to have more GDP per capita. That means that the salary should be higher here. approaching European salaries. This is one thing. I'm sure that many people who left your countries would like to come back because this is their culture, this is their language, this is their families, and they have pride with their country. They would like to come back. Enable them to come back. They are not people who left the country because they wanted to. They are people that had to leave the country because they could not find a proper job here. You have to create an atmosphere and financial system that encourages people to come back. It is a slow process, but you know the direction. You know the direction. And if you develop startups like we do, Israel is also a very small nation. You are smaller, but we are not very large. And we have problems, many more problems than you have. Security problems, no water, dry land. Every problem is a chance to invent something new. And this is why, because we are a dry country, this is why we developed the best irrigation system in the world. We don't have water. We desalinate water. 85% of the water we drink in Israel comes from the sea. We desalinate the water. We have so much desalinated water that we sell Jordan, our neighbor, 100 million cubic meters of water per year. And we make money selling them. It's a product, okay? Why do we have that? Because we don't have water. So now we have excess water. Agriculture, very difficult. Not like your country, which is fertile. Whatever you put in the ground grows. No, there you have to supply the water. It doesn't come from rain. You have to supply the water. What I'm telling you, there are difficulties to overcome. You have a difficulty. And you know the answer. The answer is higher GDP per capita, higher income for the country. To have that, develop technological entrepreneurship. My talk was an answer to your question. There was one more. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
This will be the last one, then you can go.
Lambe Barandowski, Society of Physicists of Macedonia. Thank you for allowing me. 2019, there was 50 Olympiad in physics in Tel Aviv in Israel.
Okay.
And the logo was the quasi-crystal. And your discovery one mentioned there, and little bit history. I think for the young people here, it will be very interesting. Your short comment on the following sentence. There are no quasi-crystals, there are quasi-scientists.
Okay. Because this is the last question, I can go back to a place where everybody can see me. I am going to give talks on quasi-periodic materials, scientific talks, and you are all welcome to attend them. But for those of you who cannot come to my talks, I will explain very briefly what quasi-periodic materials are. The field is crystallography. The science of crystallography started in 1912 by an experiment by a German scientist named von Laue. He performed the first X-ray diffraction experiment, and he provided a tool to analyze structure of crystals. And many, many crystals were studied. Crystal, you know, you sit on these desks are supported by steel bars. Steel is iron with some other elements, and it is crystalline, like any other crystal. All crystals that were studied were found to be ordered, and they are ordered. There was order of the atoms. They're not like tennis balls in a sack. They are ordered, in 3 dimensions, and they are periodic. All of them were ordered and periodic. And so this was the definition of a crystal. A crystal is a solid material in which the atoms are ordered and periodic. This was it. 70 years later, I discovered quasi-periodic material. What are they? They are crystals. They are ordered, but they're not periodic. They have a different order called quasi-periodicity. The name quasi-periodicity comes from mathematics. There are quasi-periodic equations. Maybe the mathematicians around you know this term. And it created a storm in the field of crystallography because in the books it was written that such material cannot exist. This order cannot exist. People thought about it and wrote, this cannot be, and here they are. So, and I discovered it in 3 materials. I published only one, but I discovered it in aluminum manganese. And then my colleagues around the world, and there are thousands of them, found many, many more quasi-periodic materials, and there are hundreds of them. So it's an abundant, it is available everywhere. And so this is it, this is this material. Just to finalize my words, you mentioned what Linus Pauling says. Linus Pauling was the most distinguished chemist in the United States in the 20th century, and he was really not only the father of the American Chemical Society, he was also the godfather of the American Chemical Society. And the only difference between God and Linus Pauling is that God doesn't think that he's Linus Pauling. Linus Pauling, however, had different ideas. And he said, I was there in the crowd, excuse me. He said, there are no quasi-crystals, there are only quasi-scientists, and 1,000 people cheer. I heard him in Stanford, in the big auditorium of Stanford. I was there sitting right at the end corner where this gentleman is sitting there, I was sitting there, everybody was cheering. I did not. So he was very negative, but he was wrong. And I was very cool about it because I knew that he was wrong, and my colleagues knew that he was wrong. And while in the beginning, he started his war, scientific war. I mean, we met several times, no feast, just everybody was gentlemen. When we started, he was like a sign in the sky, and I was, what's his name, Dan Šehtman. But over time, it changed. And at the end, he couldn't publish any more papers because the journal rejected his papers, saying, Dr. Pauling, thank you very much, but don't send us more papers. You're wrong, 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 wrong. So this was the story, and in my talk, I will elaborate on it a little bit more for those of you who can attend. For those of you who cannot, go to the internet, find one of my talks. I never watched it, but I'm sure that there are many of them. You can listen to it on the internet. I'd like to thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank you so much. We have wonderful horses. You have wonderful country. You have wonderful city, and you're wonderful people. My first visit here, my wife, Professor Shechtman, and I enjoy your hospitality very much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Professor Shechtman. As a sign of appreciation, we're going to give you a small catalog of postal stamps issued by Macedonian Post. The first one here, it's up there also, are minerals from Alshar. And they have the, for example, the laurendite, which is the thallium. And
wonderful.
Also, this is Mendeleev. This is the...
Yeah, but Mendeleev is Russian, okay.
Yeah, well, it's stamp issued in Macedonia. It's not something. 2011, when you received the Nobel Prize, it was the International Year of Chemistry.
Yes.
So it's here.
Wonderful.
And in 2019, it was the International Year of the Periodic Table, again connected with Mendeleev. So the Macedonian Post, on pressure from the society, issued those stamps.
This is wonderful. This is the crystals, minerals that you are very proud of. But in the future, human ingenuity. Be proud of your human ingenuity. Minerals is wonderful, scientifically, financially, economically. Human ingenuity, better. Thank you very much.